Are we live? Are we
Are we
live?
live? I think so.
I went old school. I took off stage and brought us back on stage. That'd be kind of cool. Am I a little distorted?
You are. I was just wondering, guys. Like we were backstage, and I mean, Matt was clear as day. It was beautiful. I don't know what's going on.
That is odd. That is very odd.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I'm hoping it's just a few seconds and I'll come back. Anyways, Wake Up and Deliver, Season 2, Episode 15. Time is flying by. Now this is bothering me, but I will see if I can fix it on the go. Why is it always me? Why can it never be John? Is that better? Is that better? Maybe if I quickly rejoin John, just stay on here for a second.
You can try to rejoin, yeah, for sure. I'll entertain
Please,
everybody.
please do.
All right, so Matt's going to try to rejoin because his video sucks this morning. We don't know why. Got a few different things that we're going to get into, obviously, after Matt's quote and stuff like that. Share a couple of thoughts, again, on tariffs, not too much. It's a little bit better. I think it's more your internet connection, but I think you're good.
Really? That's odd. That's Delphi, usually like gigs.
Oh, I know this is going to sound bad. We shouldn't be doing this live, but check your settings. Just make sure the camera didn't drop down to something out of HD there.
Says full. Maybe QRS. Anyways, we're doing it live. John, you can keep entertaining. Let's see if I can quickly.
Yeah, we are doing it live. So I was just saying, Matt, that we're going to get into your morning quote, and then we're going to talk into a couple of things about AI, tariffs, a little bit, obviously have a bit of a discussion, not too deep, and some things that we were chatting about around regulations and probably just good things to know for people.
Yeah, let me quickly maybe change out of this camera and then let's see if that works. You can still hear me.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely the internet connection then.
Yeah, it definitely looks like it.
All right, whatever. We're gonna get going. Enough is enough. Let's. I'll cut my. All my pre-setting stuff is now gone.
I think it's so funny though. So just this is funny for everybody watching because obviously we've been doing this now for like 2 years, and you can still see that we have like these technical challenges. We were literally sitting backstage having conversation for 15 minutes. Everything was fine. There was no issues whatsoever.
I don't know why. On my main screen, everything's fine. I look great, but then on my backup, I see I'm a little distorted.
Yeah, I don't know. Either way, we're gonna have to push through. That's life in logistics. Just get it done, no matter what.
Just get it done. Anyways, quote of the day: coffee. Get yourself going. Drink some water. Everybody.
I love this one.
Dreams big until they see the price tag. Boom.
But yeah, just get that Obama like mic drop. GIF or whatever, GIF, whichever way it is. Oh yeah, there goes the blue Yeti. Now you know. Now you guys see the gear behind the scenes. You know what? That's serious. That's a really good one, and it's such a weird thing these days because there's like a really polarizing impact around. I don't want I'll say hustle culture, but I don't think it's necessarily hustle culture. But I mean, I think that our society is essentially way over indexed on the easy button, right? Like we're looking for all kinds of ways to make things fast, easy. I mean, even at a professional level, right? People trying to buy into one service, go with one carrier, going with one platform, just because they don't actually want to deal with the problems. They just want to be able to think they can buy something and solve the problem. So it's like, to me, that quote really resonates along the fact of like, everybody wants all of the big and the good things until the price is essentially, sure, you just have to work really hard for it. And like, there's no shortcuts, right? It's like, sorry, there's no Ozempic for this one, guys.
That was my line. You like that, eh?
Oh, did I?
I used that a few, I think last week or the week before. We're like,
I guess it's stuck, so it must be very good.
There's no Ozempic for it, because you don't know the long-term effects of taking shortcuts until later on. I think that kind of segues into a few conversations we were going to have this morning. One of them I wanted to bring up. We've talked about it obviously often, and we haven't talked about it in a while, is AI. And I keep saying talked about AI, and I think a lot of people are not aware what you can do and how you can learn about it. I shared this with you the other day, and I think it's quite important to share with everybody. There's free classes out right now from a lot of big firms on how to set yourself up with AI agents, how to learn how to use them and utilize them. I think that's quite cool. I think you can use it for not just for logistics, but for your own workflow, so you have more time to focus on the little things to help improve your own business, because you're going to automate a lot of the stuff in the background. Um, and I think it's important to read through these and learn what AI agents can do. And this is brought to you by Microsoft, and they provide a free course for it. And I think it's quite fantastic. And I know you said you're like, oh, this is great. I want to.
Oh yeah, Matt likes to just grind my gears, send me this stuff when he knows it's like I shouldn't be working and stuff. And he's like, oh hey, look at what I just found. And then everybody in the house is like all pissed because like I'm
Get
like,
up and walk away.
I gotta go look at this. I think the interesting thing with this though is two things, right? There was that really leaked, but I don't really think any of these CEOs that publish a public email to the whole company ever think it's going to stay private. There was that email from Toby over at Shopify last week. And then there was some news about Microsoft over the weekend that basically said on their product development team, they're going to cut out non-coders. Like they're trying to cut out middle managers essentially that like weren't really the people that were doing the work on the product. And they're going to kind of lean into a lot more AI, right? Toby over at Shopify. Now, again, guys, keep in mind how big Shopify is, right? Billions and billions of dollars of revenue and all kinds of profitability these days, basically saying, before you hire a person, you have to prove to me why you can't hire a bot. And that's the gist. I mean, maybe a little bit over-indexed, but that's not that far from what he actually said. And I think it just shows how much people are expecting users or people in their organizations to adopt AI as an accelerant. You and I have talked about this for a long time, right? Using it as like an enabler versus just hoping it'll replace people completely. Now it's just turning into the fact that like, hey, I only want the people that know how to double, quadruple, 10x their capability because of these tools.
Yeah. Well, I found it very interesting. I forget who said it was a perspective of what was AI replacing people, and it was, they're talking about, yeah, AI is replacing the people that are not the best at what they do. So they're not going to replace the best coders, because we've talked about this. You need someone to validate what AI is doing. It's replacing the lower end. If you're a 6 out of 10 at coding, that's the target. So what it's pushing is people to be better at what they're doing and learn quicker and be more effective at what they're doing. If you're just quote unquote coasting through, and I know it sounds horrible, this is where AI is focusing, where managers are focusing the AI tools, is because they wanted that good consistency of a 7 out of 10 product to be able to provide it for their customers, right? And that's where the focus on a lot of the AI is. It's, if you're the best customer service rep out there for your company, I think you're secure in your job. But if you're just half-assing it, if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, I think that's where a lot of the people are starting to look at, like, hey, how can we get instead of having a 20-80 where 20% of the company is doing 80% of the work, how do we get more people doing like a 40-60 where 40% of the company is doing 40, how did the number work? Yeah, 40-60, but it should be higher.
Yeah, you're trying to get away from
you know what
I got you. Huh? I got you.
Got me. Help me, John. Fill me in. Fill it in.
No, it's true. And here we'll wrap this up a little bit because obviously we're logistics people, we're operators. We're not here doing an AI show. So why are we talking about this? And because the thing is that business is moving this way, right? Your clients are moving this way. The people you're competing against are moving this way. The talk these days, when you're looking at different organizations, different startups or whatever, is these small companies that are producing disproportionate amount of value, right? What can you do with 5 people? What can you do with 20 people, for example? And can you do with 20 people what used to be done with 200 people? And it's going to be important, especially since logistics, operations, supply chain in general is a low-cost business, right? For any of the service providers out there, it doesn't have a lot of margin. And for retailers and brands or other companies that are using those services, unfortunately, we all know that it's like a grind. It's a push to always keep the cost down. And that expectation is coming. So if you're not adopting it, if you're not using it, I think you're going to be in for a hard thing. Matt's going to show something in a minute, but what this is basically showing is just how accessible this one, the education around things like agents is, two, how much more easily a average person can start to develop these workflows. We're going to show you another tool that a lot of people are using right now, and how you can use things that are already built, right? By whether it's a automation platform, whether it's a large language model, whether it's using some other models like a RAG, to basically really improve your own productivity. And I mean, to take what I think is the laziest line in logistics, and I want to come back to this because I still think it's going on, but this concept of let the brand do the sales so you can do the and the logistics provider doing the work, that's how you have to look at your own business too, is that you need to cut out all of these menial tasks so you can focus more on the relationship, more on your customer's business, more on understanding them to a deeper level of detail and nuance, so that you can be a better partner for them and not have most of your time just blown away by chasing emails, chasing updates, managing transactions in different systems and everything like that.
Yeah, like the point of I find a tool is to help you create more time for yourself and be able to focus on the things that really matter. And creating these workflows, I think, is part of this. I'm going to quickly show this tool. It's called, how do you pronounce it? N8N, but John
and Naden. Yeah, so it's spelled N8 and then N, but it's pronounced Naden.
So it's similar to Make. It's similar to Zap, and then the cool thing about it is it connects. Would you say it's local onto your server? You said you can put it on your server locally.
Well, there's two. Yeah, see, the reason why this one is blowing up compared to Make and Zapier, whichever way you want to say it, is because they, like a lot of modern tools, Metabase is another one that does this. For example, on the BI side, there are lots of data clients that are doing it now, but they have a community edition which allows you to actually run this software on your local machine and get all of these automations. Because I'll tell you right now, one of the barriers for most people to get into automation is that you don't want to go on to Make, for example, and start paying for it right away. Setting up some basic workflows can easily use those monthly credits as part of the free plan and gets you into something paid pretty quickly. So Naden kind of decided to just blow the doors off that barrier by saying, hey, if you really want to download it yourself, go ahead. Now, obviously that means it has to be running. It has to be on your machine and different ways to execute it. But they do have cloud versions and stuff like that after the fact. But pretty much most of the videos that you're seeing right now with people doing some really wild stuff, creating their own agents, is because they're self-hosting it a lot.
Yeah, and then I think if ever you use Make, I tried using Make for a while and Zapier and whatnot. It is a bit challenging, but from the videos I've seen on this one, it is a lot easier. Here, the person is showing how you can read what's called receipts and organize it back into your own system. Which even John, looking at it, seems like he's probably thinking this is.
I am because I am.
He just did his taxes.
I did. I've got a pet project where I just really dislike all of the app trackers out there for consultants or whatever. I don't like it, and I'm like, I should just make my own.
And here it is. Here's a tutorial on how to make it yourself and how to increase your time.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it into Google though. I think for this guy being self-hosted, he could easily get himself set up in a proper database, but that's a nitpick for sure.
Pretty interesting, cool stuff happening as always. We are always looking for interesting ways to increase your abilities. But here's another one that we wanted to talk about. It's more logistics themed. And John felt quite passionate about it. He does most things.
Was this the tariff guy?
I am the one that is usually quite even keel. I have no feelings on the top the topic. I'm kidding. This is when it was interesting. Can you want me to hear?
I don't think that's going to play the audio. No.
Anyway, so what's interesting about this is there's a lot of, I don't know about it, call it misinformation or people looking at it from a different perspective or trying to show different.
It's not it's misunderstanding, and then like, you know, kind of playing into the hype, because what he's saying is true. It's true in this context, but I'll let you finish. But I think it's more misunderstanding, because different things will get impacted in different ways.
I think it was adding to my choppiness. I don't know why my internet is quite funky today, but essentially what the conversations have been around on the internet lately is the tariffs. Who is to blame? Who's taking on the cost? So it's been the final consumer, the companies overseas that should be paying the tariffs. Now it's going, hey, it's the company that is importing. So in this case, Nike is paying the tariffs on it, and their ability to make a wider profit is lessened. So the example that they were using is, if Nike's costs $100 in the United States and it costs $10 to manufacture it in China, the tariff is going to put in, the $2.50 on the manufacturing in China. So it's only going to cost $12.50. There shouldn't be an increase of 25% on the purchase on the back end, right? Because when you're buying something from China, you're not paying it at retail value, and that's the part of the conversation that is, I guess, leading people astray on understanding what is going on.
Yeah, well, okay, and this is why I'm saying that there's like misinformation. There's because some of the tariffs that have been talked about in the last couple of months are ad valorem tariffs, which actually apply towards a retail value. These reciprocal tariffs are more tariffs at a typical and traditional level, right? Which is like this concept of like on the cost of goods, the transaction value, essentially. And then like there's some other things though. It's like, so this is where that video, I think he's right and he's wrong at the same time. So that premise was like, hey, if Nike's actual real cost increase is like $2 to $3, they could choose to eat it, or they could just pass on the $3 and it's no big deal, right? But I think inherently, like, that is still the problem, because he's saying, oh, the consumer isn't impacted by it. And that's where I think that particular gentleman in the video is wrong, and he's making a bad assumption, because the reality is, of course, it's only $3. And could Nike eat the $3? 100%. Except Nike is a massive business, billions and billions of dollar business with millions of transactions. There's going to be a large impact to their financial performance to all of a sudden lose $3 they've never lost before in the past. And when you look at the stock market and year over year performance, that would immediately like decline all of their sales and stuff like that.
I think it's very easy to focus on the larger companies. I think it's more prudent to focus on the smaller companies that don't have such a wide margin, where, yeah, maybe that's a great example. Nike, yeah, they could absorb it. But the mom and pop competitors that are going up against Nike don't have such a wide margin to start. And it does impact them to be competitive in that fashion right away. So I think it's a good example of the greater, bigger corporations have the ability on paper to absorb some of these additional tariffs, but it also affects the smaller competitors that are coming up to work against them. That's affecting them disproportionately as well, and affects their supply chain at a far different level than it would Nike, right? Nike has the ability to talk to their supply chain and have an impact on absorbing some of that cost. Well, someone who doesn't nearly ship as often won't have that same kind of ability, right?
Yeah, but like the problem is, though, like I said, like, to me, that's what I'm saying. Like, the guy's position was like true, but it's like flawed all the way through, in the sense of like Nike's cost increase is only $2 to $3 because of the volume they do. If some other small footwear company had the same thing, their cost increase is most certainly going to be higher, because their base cost is lower, because they don't have the economy of scale on the manufacturing, and they don't have the desirability, most likely, in the market from these contract manufacturers. So it's like their costs are going to be higher. They have less, to your point, they have fewer options and less resources to mitigate and manage those resources all the way through, right? Like, companies like Walmart and Nike and Target and Amazon, whatever, have lots of leverage. I mean, Amazon, for example, imagine this. and tell me that you don't think it's going to have an impact very quickly. They just canceled a bunch of stuff coming from China. They just canceled their orders. Yep. Like, you know, for like these Amazon sort of branded products. Are you telling me that those manufacturers in China aren't flipping out that Amazon just canceled a $100 million PO? Of course they are. They're going to bend over backwards to try to figure it out.
Well, I mean, there's a new trend. I don't know if you've seen it, but there's a new trend of Chinese manufacturers and Chinese products now inviting consumers to come straight to China, purchase the products directly at the lower price, and bring some of it back home, back to the United States to circumvent a lot of these tariffs in that fashion. So they're saying, hey, you know, group on a deal with all your friends, look at all the products that you want to buy, come to China, put it all in bags, and bring it back home, and you will avoid all these tariffs, and you'll have a great time and enjoy China and all its benefits. Which they're trying all different things to be able to circumvent these tariffs at any pace possible, and I find that very interesting too, because you're seeing a national push from China how to avoid paying these tariffs and how to still benefit the American consumer, to showcase that it's not the Chinese government, and Americans obviously are going, well, hey, let's be cautious on how we do this, because for the longest time, like last tariffs, China sent everything to Vietnam. Now Vietnam got hit, and all these other countries got hit. It's becoming far more difficult for them to circumvent the tariffs, right?
Well, I mean, there's a circumventing, but I think honestly, the real damage that China could do, if they really wanted to, and this is like the real nasty underbelly, they could just start highlighting what it really costs to produce. Hey,
which they started doing.
That's what I'm saying. So it's like they can essentially just upend North American commerce or even European commerce by just being like, hey, you know that jacket that you just bought from North Face that was $300? We sell that to them for $50. We sell that for $40. And if they started going on a campaign about how cheap it is, and to your point, just buy directly anyway, because no matter if you pay taxes, tariffs, import fees, it'll be cheaper than going to buy at retail. And it's the exact same stuff that you were buying with that logo on it. That would be devastating, because those companies would never be able to recover from that. Like once that genie's out of the box in terms of information and knowledge, there's no pretending that's not true after that.
So there's the question is, if I purchase something from the same factory, from the same manufacturer, who still, they don't quote unquote care about intellectual property anymore. They're saying, hey, you know what? We don't care about it anymore. We're not gonna, you guys are doing this, we're not gonna protect it anymore. Is the value of the product the same? Is the Nike bought straight from China, made in the same factory, it still has the same emblem, but it's not endorsed by Nike, have the same value? And if it doesn't, does it bring down the value of the actual Nike product in that case? And I'm sure it will. And that's where a lot of their hurts, because I think, start going to be coming in, where people are going to be like, well, yeah, I want to buy Nikes. I don't care if they're knockoffs, because you can't tell if they're made the exact same way. And not to pick on Nike, this applies to Adidas, to all the companies, North Face, Canada Goose, and everybody else. Where's the value of that actual product, right? And that's what I think they're challenging completely, and that's how it's going to really challenge the supply chain for all of these companies.
But exactly, and imagine the impact if all of a sudden, like the Gen Z, Gen Alpha type young adults and kids start adopting a mentality of like, you're stupid if you pay brand prices. Like, imagine the sheer destruction that would come if it's like you push them, and it's like, instead of someone being quote unquote envied for those Jordans on their feet, they're like, look at this sucker. You know what I mean? And like, just kind of like, if it flips the script, I think that I really think that there's some things there that could get really disrupted in the whole retail space. And with North America essentially being a service-based economy and a consumer-based economy, like, just not good.
And we have examples of this. I mean, I don't know if you remember years ago, Lacoste was a very popular brand. Everybody wanted a Lacoste. and it was found out that it was made in, I think it was at the time in Chile. And then when people were going down to Chile to find out, this is before like going to the factories in China became popular. They found out that the locals were all wearing Lacoste. They're like, oh, how can you afford all this? They're like, it's like $1. Like, it's the cheapest stuff because we make it here. And you can purchase it just at the local bazaar. Like, it's the authentic stuff. It just doesn't have that last seal on the tag that said that it's the quality control has now approved it. And then people just started buying it directly from Chileans at the time. And I remember it was like is this fake or real? And people were like, I don't care if it's fake or real. It's still the same product, right? And I know Lacoste at the time took a little bit of a hit.
Well, and that's like the other thing is that I think a lot of things that people aren't also evaluating properly is that private label, as an example, is dominating grocery, like in a big way,
great example.
Big way. And you can see what happens when your supply chain and your product offering and your execution revolve around one of your own products. I saw a cool infographic the other day that was showing some of the biggest private label brands. And of course, they're dominated by the grocery sector. But Costco is a good one because Costco kind of is a little bit more liberal, and they've just not even doubled down. They're all in on Kirkland. They don't even mess around with any fake other private label brands or whatever. Everything is Kirkland. And it's $66.5 billion in sales. Like, that is bigger than so many other big brands that you think are out there. And the more that some of these companies are struggling with tariffs, they keep trying to push their costs, they keep trying to create these FOMO events, they keep trying to up their prices. Like, I mean, I don't know if you've noticed, and I probably shouldn't speak down to it, but like Ralph Lauren's a good example of like a company that essentially was like that was popular and then went down to almost like valueless. Like, you could buy their stuff for like $15-20, and now you go into their stores and they've just decided that these things that they make are worth like $400. Nothing has changed with it, but because they've jacked their prices, it's created like a status and it's created like a barrier. Yeah. But I mean, like, that's great that works. But I guess my question is like, well, what happens when that stops working? Then what?
And that's the question. Like, even go back to your Kirkland, even back to your Amazon example that you were saying is a lot of these grocers now have power to affect the purchase orders that they're having because they're coming from the same factories, but they have it at a different scale than the actual brand at times. And it affects the supply chain and how they purchase it. And also, if you don't find the value, like talking about the Ralph Lauren in the product, but you like it, at what point are we going to start seeing these smaller brands providing more of a customization where it's, don't buy the big name brand, millennial or Gen Z, I don't know, and then create your own thing and be different. Don't worry about it because the tariffs are affecting so much. Customization of local work is going to be the same value. And you can be unique and you can be your own brand. You don't need to buy the boomer brand or the millennial brand anymore. You can create your own brand and you can be that.
Well,
and that will change the supply chain completely as well, right?
Exactly. Like, what starts happening if, like, this level of irritation all of a sudden turns all these contract manufacturers into, making it super and hyper accessible for everybody that's all over social commerce with their own communities to have their like, I mean, and that's essentially what's happening, having their own brands. But what if they like open the floodgates, drop the MOQs, really make it easy for people to have their own brand? Because honestly, if you think of private label, once you have the trust of the customer, like if I walk into Costco, and I don't actually like shopping at Costco that much these days anymore, so I rarely go. But if I do go into Costco and I see something that's branded Kirkland, I know from the years I spent working with Costco that they have pushed the boundaries of that, and there's probably more value in it than what the price indicates. I feel extremely comfortable buying anything that's Kirkland. Like, I really don't think twice about it.
Well, Walmart's the same way. Like, a lot of people, I wouldn't say a lot, but there are people that, put down the Walmart brand for grocery, but they have a very high status of what they will.
Well, because it's theirs, right?
Exactly. Right. And they control, and they want that high value there. But on that note, we are at time with all the technical difficulties in the blurry screens and everything that is out today. John, final thoughts for the week. We had a different, unique show today. What are your thoughts for the week?
Yeah, I think that it's a good discussion just to get people thinking about what really is the future. And I think, the best thing that anyone can do these days is to really try to drop as many of your assumptions as possible, right? I think that, most people or more people are going to overcommit on past practice and beliefs. And I don't think enough people are paying attention to the fact that people are probably far more willing to change, i.e. adopt a private label brand, i.e. not spend that extra money for a huge premium and all of these types of things, because they simply won't have the ability to do it. And if that trend really takes hold, and if it really seizes that meaty middle, there's going to be some real challenges for just everybody. Because if the retailers start having challenges, providers are going to start having challenges, right? Service providers are going to start having challenges. And, the second that revenue drops or it spreads around in different ways, it changes the whole landscape. So I think it's very important to really, really be focused on your execution, the quality of it, being able to move with trends and admit if something is feeling like it's changing.
Absolutely. I think those are some great words. And on that topic, as always, thank you for joining Wake Up and Deliver. Join us next Monday. Same loading dock, same warehouse. Same
load time. Yeah.
Load
Except
time.
Next week we hope with Matt's fiber connection restored.
we don't apply fines for being late. You can join at any time. It's first come, first serve. Always have a good time. Thank you everybody for joining us.